Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. The topic for today's webinar is Financing Resilient Power in Under-Resourced Communities. This webinar is being presented by Clean Energy Group's Resilient Power Project, and we have a number of guest speakers with us today. Before I pass this over to them, I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping notes. All of our attendees are in listen-only mode. You have a couple of options to join the audio portion of our webinar. You can call in using a telephone, or you can connect using your computer mic and speakers. If you'd like to minimize the webinar console, you can do that by clicking on the orange arrow that you see circled. You can also use that to expand the webinar console. A very important note, we ask that you please submit your questions and your comments throughout the webinar by typing them into the questions box on your webinar console and hitting send. We are going to save about 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A at the end of the webinar, and we'll get to as many questions as we can to make sure that we get to your question. Type it in when you think of it. Don't wait until the very end. A final note, this webinar is being recorded. We will send you an email probably this afternoon at the very latest by tomorrow with a link to the webinar slides and recording, and we'll also be posting those on our website at cleanegroup.org/webinars. So with that, I would like to pass this over to our host for today's webinar, Rob Sanders. Rob is a Senior Finance Director here at Clean Energy Group, and he is going to get this webinar started. Rob?
Great. Thanks a lot, Sam, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We have a great webinar today. We'll be talking about a groundbreaking philanthropic effort to accelerate the development and financing of solar PV and battery storage in historically underserved communities. Clean Energy Group has worked with the Kresge Foundation to develop this initiative. We're pleased to host today's webinar. CEG is a national nonprofit that for more than 20 years has worked to advance and deploy innovative clean energy technologies, policies, and financing models. CEG is funded entirely by foundations and government agency grants, including major support from these foundations. Okay, I'm still getting the hang of this. Sorry, bear with me. I'd especially like to highlight the Department of Energy and their Solar Energy Technology Office, which has provided us with multi-year funding to replicate and adapt this initiative we're discussing today in order to create new financing programs that involve more foundations, lenders, and project developers in the financing of solar storage for LMI households. Today's webinar is one of many presented by CEG's Resilient Power Project, which works to increase investment and deployment of resilient power systems in low-income and vulnerable communities. Resilient Power Project has a focus on affordable housing and critical community facilities. It also works to engage city, state, and federal policymakers in developing supportive policies and programs. Please visit www.resilient-power.org to see our case studies, publications, archived webinars, and toolkit materials. CEG has also provided technical assistance to more than 150 projects across the country. A little later in this webinar, you'll be hearing more about our technical assistance and tools from Seth Mullendor, who heads up our Resilient Power project. Let me say a word about today's panelists and then a quick summary of the key terms of the Kresge Financing Resilient Power Initiative. Jessica Beland works as Senior Program Officer with the Kresge Foundation's Environment Program, which helps cities build their resilience in these times of climate change. Jessica leads the team's grant making and other activities related to energy efficiency, renewable energy, and energy resilience. Before joining Kresge 12 years ago, Jessica served as managing editor of Environmental Building News and editor of Green Source magazine. Jessica is a lead accredited professional and serves on the boards of the Environmental Grantmakers Association and the Funders Network, She holds degrees from both Oberlin College and the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. Curtis Probst will be up after that, and Curtis is the co-CEO of New York City Energy Efficiency Corporation, NYCEEC. Prior to joining NYCEEC, Curtis worked for over 3 years as a managing director at Rocky Mountain Institute, a global energy think tank, leading their sustainable finance practice. And before that, Curtis worked for more than 20 years with Goldman Sachs, Salomon Brothers, as a managing director in investment banking and vice president in structured and project finance. Curtis also teaches as an adjunct faculty member at Columbia University. And then Seth Mullendor is vice president and project director for Clean Energy Group. Seth manages the Resilient Power Project. Before joining Clean Energy Group, Seth served as a sustainable energy fellow with the Union of Concerned Scientists and worked with Maine Clean Communities. Seth has a degree in geosciences from the University of Southern Maine and a master's in civil and environmental engineering from Stanford. So, let me describe some of the key terms of the Financing Resilient Power Initiative. This is a $3.3 million comprehensive financing strategy. The centerpiece of it is the $3 million innovative payment guarantee to help keep loans current. This is different from most traditional guarantees in that most guarantees come into play only after a loan has gone into default, has been accelerated, and the loan has been called, assets securing the loan have been liquidated and applied against the balance of the loan. And then if there's a shortfall, the guarantee proceeds are used to make the lender whole, or whatever the terms of the agreement are, the guarantee agreement are. In a payment guarantee model, the guarantee provides maintains payments in a time when there's insufficient cash flow to cover the full debt service. So for that portion of the loan that's attributed to the solar and storage financing, up to 50% of those payments in arrear for solar and storage are made whole by the guarantor, by the loan guarantee. So it's a way of keeping these loans current, and when there's not much experience yet about how these loans would perform over time. It's a significant and generous incentive, a credit enhancement. The other, what makes it also a comprehensive financing strategy is that there are companion grants. There's a capacity building grant that's available to the lender to bring them up to speed on how a solar and storage project could be structured, to help with the pipeline development, to establish relationships that are going to be important to be able to service this portfolio, to gain experience with technical service providers, and to compensate for the opportunity cost. Lenders know how to make money and build portfolios, but not necessarily with solar and storage in low-income communities. So that's a significant part of this. And then technical assistance grants, which are grants paid to third-party technical service providers to evaluate opportunities, projects, both for their technical feasibility, but also for their economic feasibility. So it's a way for both borrowers, prospective borrowers, and lenders to understand how a project is going to likely perform, and to size those projects properly. So the kinds of projects that can be financed under the guarantee facility are multifamily affordable and supportive housing, commercial and mixed-use projects, critical community facilities that can be used for different kinds of loans, whether that's construction or bridge loans against other funding that's coming into the project. permanent financing. These can be used for projects that are owned directly by the property owner or project developer, third-party ownership, or special purpose entities, for-profit and non-profit ownership, co-op and community-owned projects. The term of the facility is 14 years, and that means that the underlying loan terms would be 10 years with a 4-year origination period. The designated lender is NYCEEC, and the initiative is managed by the Clean Energy Group. Please remember to submit questions as this goes along. Earlier the better, so that our panelists can see them as well. And we'll try to get to them all. And those who would like to discuss this initiative further and how it might be replicated or adapted can contact me at the email below. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jessica. You're up next.
Terrific. Thank you, Rob and Sam, for setting us up and getting us rolling. Again, my name is Jessica Beland, and I work as a Senior Program Officer at the Kresge Foundation, which is based in Detroit, Michigan, but works nationally. I'm thrilled to be part of this webinar, both because I'm excited to share the story that we have to tell about financing resilient power, and also because we've made it to this point. This has been a long journey, and we're really excited to be able to finally talk about it publicly. So I want to touch on just a couple of quick questions. First, what is the Kresge Foundation? Second, why are we working on resilient power? And third, what is the Financing Resilient Power Initiative? Rob's already shared a bit about it, and I'll share a little bit of a different perspective on it. So first, what is the Kresge Foundation? Well, for those who are unfamiliar, Kresge is a national private foundation that was established in 1924 by a man named Sebastian Kresge, who was founder of the SS Kresge Company. The Kresge Company began as a single 5 and dime store, but expanded nationally and eventually became the Kmart Corporation, which I'm sure you've all heard of. Sebastian Kresge contributed more than $60 million to the foundation, and he gave it the broad mandate of working to expand human progress. Today, the Kresge Foundation endowment sits a little north of $3.5 billion, and working in close collaboration with our partners in the nonprofit, public, private, and philanthropic space, we award more than $160 million each year through grants and through social investments that are intended to expand opportunities in America's cities. You can see the different program areas that Kresge has chosen to focus on here. The first 7 all use grants as the main tool to carry out our work. And then we also have a social investment practice, which uses loans, deposits, equity, and guarantees to support organizations and efforts that also advance the various programs' goals. I am lucky enough to be part of Kresge's Environment Program, which works at the intersection of cities in the U.S., climate change, mitigation as well as adaptation, and social and racial equity. We support cities that are working ideally on mitigation and adaptation in concert. We have a high priority on supporting the inclusion and influence of people with low incomes and people of color in climate-related decision-making. And we work to build the capacity of both government entities and community actors, as well as fostering connections between them. The Environment Program's work on energy is focused on helping cities transform their energy systems from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and to do so in ways that reflect the needs and the priorities and the knowledge of low-income communities and communities of color. Part of that work is focused on advancing elements of this transformation, including resilient power, that hold particular promise for community benefit. Kresge's social investment practice, as I mentioned, uses other tools, loans, deposits, equity, and guarantees to support organizations and efforts that advance the program's goals. The social investment practice seeks to attract capital from other sources, including financial institutions, private investors, other foundations, donors, and government agencies, and it strives to bring together potential partners as well as serve as project ambassadors. Because Kresge is committed to advancing social good, our social investment practice takes much more risk than private sector financiers when there's a strong opportunity for impact. And the practice most often makes its investments through intermediary partners, such as community development, financial institutions, or CDFIs. So I want to spend just a minute talking about why Kresge has chosen to put its resources to use to advance resilient power, or solar and storage. You've already heard part of the case from Rob Sanders at the Clean Energy Group, and the first reason that Kresge works on solar and storage is really the same reason the Clean Energy Group works on solar and storage, and that is that there's an urgent and compelling need to ensure that people, and especially those people who are most vulnerable, have access to air conditioning, to heating, to refrigeration, and the other services that electricity enables, even when the power grid goes down. While solar and storage is increasingly common for corporate campuses and wealthy homeowners, low-wealth communities risk being left behind. But I also wanted to talk about a few other qualities that made this work on solar and storage a particularly good fit for Kresge. The second thing is that, as I mentioned previously, Kresge's environment team is committed to advancing climate change mitigation, that is, reducing carbon emissions, as well as climate change adaptation, or preparing for the effects of climate change. And we have a particular interest in supporting efforts that advance both mitigation and adaptation in concert. And solar and storage does that by reducing carbon emissions through the use of solar panels, while also helping communities prepare for power outages that we know are becoming more frequent as climate change intensifies. The third reason is that Kresge's environment program and social investment practice see a clear opportunity to advance resilient power by collaborating. Historically underserved communities face a variety of barriers in deploying solar and storage systems, and we believe that combining our different tools, that is grants and program-related investments, we can help this market develop more quickly than it otherwise would. Finally, both Kresge's environment program and our social investment practice aim to engage in problems that we think are susceptible to what we would say is durable change. That is, to focus on dismantling barriers or fixing market failures so that systems will work better even after our engagement has ended. And we believe that the market for solar and storage in low-income communities presents this kind of a problem. If we can help project developers and lenders build their capacity to work with solar and storage systems in affordable housing and community centers, and give these systems a chance to prove out their viability in these applications, we believe the market will more readily serve low-income communities going forward. Kresge began supporting work on solar and storage back in 2014 with our first grant in this space to support the Clean Energy Group's Resilient Power Project. In 2016, we renewed that support, and we also asked the Clean Energy Group to research capital barriers and opportunities for grants as well as investments to advance solar and storage systems in low-income communities. And the capital scan that resulted, which was released in early 2017, and the cover of which is shown on this slide, really guided the design of this initiative that we're talking about today. So the last question I wanted to address here is, what is the Financing Resilient Power Initiative? And as you heard from Rob, our commitment has three main components. First, Kresge awarded a $3 million loan guarantee to reduce credit risk for solar and storage projects in low and moderate income areas. Structured as a 50% payment guarantee to ensure that borrowers' loan payments remain current, this credit enhancement substantially reduces the risk of a payment default to lenders and their investors who provide capital for these loans. As Rob mentioned, the term of the guarantee is 14 years, including a 4-year initiation period. And the guarantee is booked as a reserve on Kresge's endowment unless a demand for payment is made. In that scenario, Kresge would assume the first loss position and treat the transaction as a program-related investment. The New York City Energy Efficiency Corporation, or NYCEEC, who you'll hear from in a moment, is the first lender selected to take advantage of this loan guarantee. Second, we awarded a grant of $170,000 to accelerate NYCEEC's ability to finance solar and storage projects, as well as to build project pipelines and share information with others. This new support builds on grants that we awarded in 2011 and 2013 to help NYCEEC establish itself as well as a more recent grant in 2017 that was specifically aimed at helping NYCEEC build its capacity on solar and storage. Finally, we awarded $120,000 in technical assistance grants that will help project owners and developers to assess the technical and financial viability of these solar and storage projects that are likely to be financed by NYCEEC. The Clean Energy Group is managing these grants in close partnership with NYCEEC. So the partners in this work are pretty clear by this point. We at Kresge count ourselves very lucky to be working with these creative and committed partners at the Clean Energy Group and at NYCEEC. And while we're really excited about this initiative, we know that it's only a start in this space. We very much welcome additional partners in this work, whether they be nonprofit or for-profit lenders, affordable housing developers, community-based organizations, foundations, or others. And for any foundation staff that might be listening in, please know that there are rules for grants as well as for loans and loan guarantees, and I'd be thrilled to talk to you about that. We're really excited to see how the Financing Resilient Power initiative plays out over the coming months and years, and we hope that it proves to have been a catalytic step in what will have been the rapid transition to renewable and resilient power in communities across the country. So with that, I will leave you with my contact information. Please feel free to reach out if I can answer questions or if you'd like to talk about collaborating on anything. And I will turn the mic over to Curtis Probst, co-CEO at NYCEEC.
Great. Thank you very much, Jessica. And thank you to the Kresge Foundation for its support in this initiative. If we could advance to the first slide, thank you. I'll be talking a little bit, first of all, about who NYCEEC is, and then I'll be talking about some case studies and the pipeline of opportunities in general terms that we see as it relates to solar plus storage. So moving to the next page. NYCEEC is a 501c3 mission-driven green lender. We were launched a decade ago by the New York City Mayor's Office of Sustainability. We lend to green building projects that reduce energy consumption or produce clean energy. So notwithstanding our name, which is energy efficiency is our middle name, we work on both renewables and energy efficiency, or the supply and the demand side. Our projects save money, improve the environment, and help build sustainable communities. We prioritize projects serving low and moderate income communities to the greatest extent possible. In many cases, the capital that we provide is difficult to get from regular commercial lenders. Our mission is to deliver financing solutions and advance markets for energy efficiency and clean energy in buildings. And our vision is energy efficiency and clean energy financing for buildings to achieve scale and be accessible to all. Next slide. On this page, we have the current version of our infographic. A lot of numbers on the page, so I'm just going to highlight two of them. First, in the northwest corner, you'll see $168 million of capital mobilized. It's a number that we're growing rapidly, and it's a really important number to us. The size of the climate problem is enormous, so even though we're a fairly small organization, we're really trying to maximize the capital deployed, and we're operating in areas that the commercial lenders don't operate. We're not trying to crowd out capital. In fact, we're doing the smaller, harder projects in an attempt to bridge to commercial success where we can attract larger lenders and get larger projects done. And then we move on to the next challenging sector. The other number I'll highlight on the page is in the upper right-hand corner. Nearly 7,000 affordable housing units we've greened, whether that's been through financing energy efficiency, rooftop solar, combined heat and power, et cetera. So we've done a lot of work in the affordable housing sector and in LMI communities generally, and we've mobilized a lot of capital in sectors that are very difficult to mobilize capital through regular commercial lenders. Next slide. Even though the focus of this presentation is solar plus storage, we actually finance a broad range of technologies. The only requirement is that they reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we finance energy efficiency, both relatively simple projects like lighting, but also more advanced energy efficiency projects. Solar+storage, we have financed, and we're going to provide a case study in a few moments. Combined heat and power, and we've done this in affordable communities, both to increase resilience in addition to reduce GHG emissions. We've financed high performance retrofits. We've also financed demand response and clean fuel conversions, moving from heavy heating oils to cleaner fuels. Next slide. Even though we're called New York City Energy Efficiency Corp, we actually lend throughout the Mid-Atlantic and Northeastern region. The reason for that is because a lot of the transactions are very complicated. We work very closely with developers and contractors and other stakeholders to the transaction. And once we develop those relationships, we want the ability to work with those partners in other transactions. Some of those transactions may be across the river in New Jersey, they may be up in Connecticut, in Philadelphia, et cetera. So we want the ability to work with the best and brightest throughout the region. We also want the best and brightest in the region to see New York City as a place that's open for business. So that's part of the reason for our geographic expansion. We didn't run out of buildings to work on in New York City. As you can see, we operate from Massachusetts to Maryland, and we have several projects outside of New York City throughout the region. Next slide. So we finance most building types: multifamily, commercial and industrial, institutional, and not-for-profit. The only building type we don't finance is single-family residential. We're really trying to maximize the GHG impact for the amount of capital that we have to deploy. Our loan products include equipment loans, ESA or PPA-backed loans, PACE loans or property assessed clean energy, pre-development loans, and credit enhancement. So we're really very flexible in trying to meet the needs of our borrowers and to try to allow them to get their projects completed. Our loan sizes typically range from $250,000 to $2.5 million, but we've participated in larger loans through partnering with other lenders. Candidly, we're not needed to do $25 million loans because there are lots of commercial lenders that will look at loans that are larger than the loans we provide. We feel that operating in this loan size range, we're able to still do projects that have a meaningful footprint in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but at the same time, the smaller projects that are necessary to get to the next stage of development of the new technologies. To provide maximum flexibility, we provide construction financing for most of our loans. We bridge to available incentives, and we offer multiple draws on our loans. So our borrowers can take the money as they need it, which helps reduce the overall cost of projects for them. On the next slide, you'll see our introduction to a case study for Marcus Garvey Apartments. This is an affordable housing complex in Brooklyn, New York. It's 100 buildings. This is a great project. It's in an LMI neighborhood, it's affordable housing, but it's absolutely state-of-the-art in terms of clean energy. It has rooftop solar, it has a fuel cell, and it has lithium-ion storage. This particular loan that we made was financing the storage component. There were other commercial lenders available to do the solar, and we're not trying to crowd out other lenders. So we were happy to have other lenders finance the solar. In this particular instance, we financed the storage. But as part of the Kresge Resilient Power Initiative, we're happy to finance both, just to be clear. It was a $1.2 million project cost for the lithium-ion battery storage. We financed 100% of that through debt. We normally look for 10 to 20% equity investment in projects, but given the groundbreaking nature of this project, we were comfortable providing debt financing for the full amount. And this reduced peak demand at the project or at the housing complex by 15%, which had significant benefits in terms of reducing the utility bills for the housing complex. Next page. So we have a lot of text on this page, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. so that literally we're all on the same page. On the left-hand side of the page, we talk about the client challenge. Our client was really Demand Energy, a developer which was looking to expand into new markets. They started a discussion with L&M Development, which is an owner of low-income housing, regarding putting in place lithium-ion storage at Marcus Garvey Apartments. Unfortunately, they went to many of their normal financing sources and they were unable to get financing. Storage is still a relatively new asset class, and so it's often difficult to get regular commercial financing for storage projects, hence the reason for the guarantee and for our participation in this sector. So as far as the solution, we used advanced modeling to devise a financing approach that would take into account all the various revenue streams associated with the storage installation. That's reducing the demand charges, that's providing emergency backup, that's also reducing demand in the area, which was an important initiative for Con Ed, our local utility company, and they were willing to pay some of the incentives to reduce demand in the region, because that's a lot cheaper than building a new substation in Brooklyn, which would have cost over $1 billion. So the complex was able to develop a good business model. We underwrote that business model and provided a loan. The energy system is part of a long-term energy services contract with Demand Energy, so L&M, the developer, didn't have to pay any of the upfront investment. So the results are fantastic, and this is a great project. We have taken several foundations to this project, so I don't know if people are interested in a tour. Maybe I'm not, shouldn't be extending the invitation to such a large group, but if you're ever in the area, this is a fantastic project. I'd love to show it to people. We're very proud of it. This is the first affordable housing microgrid. The battery storage will lower and has lowered operating costs at Marcus Garvey, along with aiding Con Ed in meeting the peak energy demand and providing emergency backup power. From our perspective, we made a loan at a 7.5% interest rate, and the loan has already been paid off. So in addition to it being an absolute win for the environment from a financial perspective, it made a ton of sense, and we were thrilled to make the loan and to see it pay off successfully. Moving to the next page. So we've been working very closely with Kresge and CEG in developing a pipeline of opportunities around solar plus storage. The opportunities fall into a few different groups, which I'll walk you through quickly. First is in affordable housing, similar to Marcus Garvey. Solar plus storage provides value for larger projects with solar costs, with lower solar costs and valuable incentives. I'm not going to get on the phone and tell you every low-income solar plus storage project pencils out perfectly, but especially for the larger projects where you have lower dollar per watt costs of the solar installation, the numbers can work and we can finance those projects. Not-for-profit buildings. Solar plus storage offers important resilience benefits in critical care facilities, community meeting centers, and other infrastructure. So we're actively speaking with people in the New York City Mayor's office to talk about how we can use solar plus storage financing to help with their resilience goals there. The next category of opportunities is around manufacturing facilities benefiting LMI communities. Yes, we still have manufacturing in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, and solar plus storage bolsters the brand of manufacturing businesses. It promotes resilience, especially where they have critical operations that require constant energy supply and cannot rely on the grid necessarily. And it also allows these businesses to capture the economics of larger distributed solar installations. Finally, even though the focus largely is affordable housing, there's also market rate housing in LMI census tracts, and solar plus storage there can provide a cost-effective means of compliance under New York City Local Law 97 for buildings of 25,000 square feet or greater, which will otherwise be subject to future penalties. This is all under the Climate Mobilization Act, which was passed in New York City last year. Moving on. So I think my colleagues on the phone have spoken about the program quite a bit, but let me just recap a couple of things. We believe the Resilient Power Program is unlocking loan capital for solar plus storage projects in underserved communities. NYCEEC is definitely prioritizing resources to accelerating the solar plus storage market. This is something where we've been doing work in this sector. This is absolutely critical from an environmental and social perspective, and we're happy to be working with such great partners in trying to get this done. Between generous state and utility incentives and NYCEEC's low fees, expedited approvals, and streamlined lending, solar plus storage projects look more attractive than ever. I'm not going to say they're really easy, but we have the expertise and the track record to get projects done. And then finally, unlike conventional lenders, NYCEEC has in-house technical expertise to understand projects. We certainly will be working closely with Clean Energy Group, but we also have expertise on incentives and the cash flow structures available for solar plus storage, and we provide tailored financing solutions to optimize project success while minimizing costs. The next and final page is just contact information. Myself and one of the senior members of our business development team who's been tasked with leading our solar plus storage initiative. So I want to thank everybody for listening in, and I'm now going to pass the microphone to Seth.
Great. Thank you very much, Curtis, and everyone else for these excellent presentations. I'm going to try to keep this fairly short because we've got a lot of questions that are coming in, and I want to make sure that we get time for them all, at least as much as possible. So I'm going to be talking about technical assistance support. As Rob mentioned in the intro, Clean Energy Group, through our Resilient Power Project, has been providing technical assistance to solar and storage resilience projects in disadvantaged communities for over around 6 years now, and we've worked on over 150 of those in different capacities. So our level of technical assistance support can range from kind of helping people think through the process through grant support for engaging third-party expertise to come in and do an in-depth assessment. So these are kind of the different stages of technical assistance support that are offered through the Kresge program and that we've worked on with other projects. So first is just assisting folks in trying to understand the process and the benefits and costs of solar and storage and how it might work for facilities that they're exploring or communities that they work in. For projects that seem like there is a good chance that they would make sense and there's a real reason to move forward. There's the technical assistance grant support that was mentioned. These grants go to technical service providers. We're open to working with pretty much anybody that has the expertise to perform that analysis. For folks that don't have people they are working with or have not identified companies that can do that, we have certain companies that we work with on a regular basis for these types of projects that we can recommend to bring into the process as well. And for those projects that it makes sense to, and there's a need to keep involved in the development process and the pre-development work, we're happy to help people work through that process as well, whether that's assessing, putting together RFP or assessing potential project specs that come in. We're happy to provide that as well. So I'm going to run through quickly a few examples of projects that we have worked on that have gotten built. So kind of from smaller up to a little bit larger. The first is McKnight Lane. This is a project in Waltham, Vermont that was originally it was a defunct mobile home park that was redeveloped as 14 modular homes. These are low-income rental properties. They're all net zero, completely electric properties, modular homes. So the net zero facilities, they already had solar as part of the project, but we were able to work with partners to help bring in energy storage so that there would be resilience, so that folks living in these units would have continued access to essentials like heating, cooling, refrigeration, ventilation during outages, which are pretty common in Vermont, particularly in the winter. So we were able to work with a number of partners to do a technical assessment of these, and then work with the utility, Green Mountain Power, and some foundations in the area to help bring the project together. We really worked just on the storage side, so you see that the project cost for storage. In 14 units, it was about 6 kilowatt-hour battery storage units. That's on the bottom right there. That's our Sonnen energy storage systems there. The total cost for this project was about $130,000. So getting a little bit bigger, we worked with folks at the city of Boulder in Colorado. This is Boulder Housing Partners. This is the affordable housing provider for the city of Boulder. So it wasn't one of their properties, but it is their headquarters we worked with so that they could continue to maintain operations and provide support to all of their housing properties and their tenants during outages and keep operations up and going. We were able to provide a technical assistance grant to have the city get this property assessed by a company called APS. They ended up doing about 20 kilowatt solar system and 45 kilowatt hours of battery storage. That's again down at the bottom right there. These were actually lead acid batteries. The first one was lithium ion batteries. Total project cost for this was about $140,000, and I was able to keep computer servers and outlets, heating and phones, Wi-Fi, and actually EV charging up and running during an outage. The last one that I'm going to talk about, this is in Washington, D.C. It's called Maycroft Apartments. This was completed last year. Really exciting project, working with a group called New Partners Community Solar, as well as Jubilee Housing and Pepco, the utility that serves the housing development, as well as the local Office of Energy and Environment there in DC, to put this project together. So this has community solar installation on the rooftop, and then in the basement of the facility, they've turned that into a resilience hub for tenants with 65 kilowatt hours of energy storage. The solar directly offsets tenant bills for about $40 a month in savings. And then when there is an outage, they can keep lighting, exhaust and floor fans, device charging, refrigeration, TVs for food, TV and microwaves for food preparation up and running throughout the outage. So this project was a bit over $300,000 in total. And there was a lot of complexity to this because it was community solar and a lot of firsts here. The first one in DC to do solar and storage at affordable housing. Really great project. So we have more information on all of these projects on our website with more detailed case studies if you want to learn more. With some of the other tools that we have available, and these are again available, this is available on our website. We put together what we call our Resilient Power Toolkit. So you can see the tabs there on the left. We have a number of different categories to help people get more familiar with solar and storage, from technologies to the economics to financing and through project development, as well as touching on some policies as well. So we have a number of reports and white papers, webinars, and different resources for folks. So it's a good place to start to explore. You can check out our website, cleanegroup.org, and go to the Resilient Power Project Toolkit. Also, just shoot us a note and we can help direct you to the right resources. One last thing before we open it up for questions, I'm going to talk about, this is the Optalight optimization tool. This is a renewable energy optimization tool that was developed by the Renewable Energy Laboratory, government lab there. We've been working with NREL over the past several years to help develop this tool. It's a version of an in-house tool that you use, and it's kind of the next generation of their PV Watts tool, which is a solar assessment tool. In this tool, you can assess both solar and storage, as well as small wind, and they're in the process of bringing the combined heat and power into the tool as well. It has a lot of functionality. You can do a lot with it. There's also a lot of defaults already in, so you can pretty easily assess a property, even if you don't have a lot of information and expertise. You can just use the defaults and run through that. We also offer a free kind of walkthrough. If folks are interested in using this, we're happy to help people understand how to use the tool, particularly nonprofit organizations that would like to learn how to assess properties that they're working with, or folks in their community that are working on this. So with that, I am actually going to open things up to questions. We've had a lot come in. There's my contact information for folks we don't get to. I'll tell you right now, we're not going to get to all the questions, but we're going to get to as many as possible. I think we can stay a little bit over the hour, so I'm going to kick things off right now. First question that came in, and I'm going to direct this to Jessica. I think you may be best to answer this. It's a question about, for the questioner, they asked about, they understand the support for nonprofit projects, but is there some sort of kind of litmus test or charitability test for loan opportunities for-profit entities that may be eligible for this program? How is that determined?
So Kresge, the environment program team, which I work on, works almost entirely with grants, although we do work in close partnership with the social investment team. With very few exceptions, our grantees are nonprofit organizations, and so we sort of meet the charitability test largely through that designation. The social investment practice also has a strong preference for working with nonprofit organizations, although they make exceptions more often than the grant side of the house does. And we would make those exceptions on a case-by-case basis, based largely on the social benefit of the work that would be funded. Was there a question more specifically about how participants in this initiative might be considered?
Not specifically, but if you have any insight into that, I'm sure that would be helpful.
I would say, if you're representing a for-profit entity and think that there's a fit for you here, potentially reach out to either Rob Sanders or myself, and or Curtis, and we'll take a look and have a conversation if it seems like we agree that this could be a fit.
Great. So there's just kind of a general question about how much funding a project can request. I assume this means both on the grant side for the technical assessment and how much could be requested through a loan. So I can address on the technical assistance side. Those grants generally range from about $5,000 up to $15,000, depending on the size and complexity of a project. But those vary greatly just based on what a project looks like. And Curtis, I'll direct it to you as far as you put some guidelines in there on what NYCEEC normally does as far as loans, but I don't know if there's any target range that you're looking at through this program.
No, there's not a target range. We're really just looking to see installations get financed. As I mentioned, our normal loan size is from about $250,000 to $2.5 million. But if we see a $5 million project, we have a number of CDFIs, other 501c3 mission-driven lenders that we can reach out to and bring into a transaction. So the supply of capital shouldn't be an issue. I think the other thing, though, is that we look at the ability of borrowers to repay the projects. So we have to identify, revenue streams, whether it's from existing operations or energy savings or, incentives from utilities to be able to repay the loan. So that's the other piece that comes into the loan sizing. But there's often a lot of incentives available for storage to help finance part of the costs. And as I mentioned in the Marcus Garvey case study, there are a lot of revenue streams that we can try to work with borrowers to identify to get comfortable in underwriting a loan.
Great. So related question, so the $3 million is available through the loan guarantee. How much is actually expected to be loaned by NYCEEC in relation to this program? Is it that $3 million number, or is it a larger size that you expect to leverage?
From our perspective, and Jessica, you certainly feel free to weigh in, we hope and expect to deploy the full amount of the guarantee. So it's a $3 million guarantee, but it's a 50% payment guarantee. So we would expect to finance roughly $6 million of solar plus storage projects that fit under this initiative, of which $3 million would be guaranteed. We also expect to finance other solar plus storage projects, but some of them may be outside of the affordable housing community or outside of LMI areas. But that's also helping to provide more proof of concept for solar plus storage generally. We do have a number of years to deploy this. We have our business development team focused on this. We have one member who's devoting a significant portion of her time trying to identify projects, but we need all of you to help us. So if you know of projects, please come back to us.
Great, thanks. So question, and I think that's probably back to you again, Curtis, is there's a question to ask about requirements for underlying policies, or what's necessary for investors to feel secure in supporting a project like this, solar and storage. You mentioned that some funders are not willing to kind of go into this sector yet. So any kind of general advice for folks that when they're looking at a project, what makes a good financeable project?
I mean, it's really just identifying cash flows that can be used to repay the debt. That's really the most important thing. I mean, our experience in working in the markets broadly is, in some jurisdictions when we're doing solar loans, the biggest revenue stream is renewable energy credits. In other jurisdictions, most of the cash flow comes from selling the power, community solar arrangement, for example. In other cases, incentives provide for a significant component of the project funding costs. So it really just varies. But at the end of the day, we're going to look at this like other commercial lenders in the sense that we are looking for a source of repayment, but where we differ from other lenders is that we're willing to look at small projects, we're willing to look at very complicated projects, and we're willing to be sort of on the leading edge of the new storage technologies.
Great. Another question for you is, do applicants have to show that they've applied to other programs to try to secure funding before being eligible for the loan guarantee?
No, not from our perspective.
Great. So I'll address this to you first, Curtis, and then maybe open it up to Rob and Jessica. You put up your geographic areas that NYCEEC works in. Are you open to projects outside of those areas? And if that's not the case, then maybe to Rob and Jessica, is there opportunities to expand the program further to incorporate more geographic regions?
I think it would have to be a very impactful project for us to go significantly beyond our geographic borders. If it's something that just outside of our service territory, then that's probably an easier thing for us. The one thing I would say, and I'll again defer to Rob or Jessica to add their thoughts, is that we do partner with a number of lenders. One of our main reasons for existing is to mobilize capital, and part of that is getting other lenders to focus on clean energy. So if you're lending in a jurisdiction where we don't have the expertise and we haven't loaned money, we may know lending partners that we've worked with on other transactions who are very comfortable and have experience lending there. So we'll try to make it work out.
Great. And Rob or Jessica, did you guys want to weigh in at all about, is there potential to possibly expand the model to other areas, or lenders working specifically in other areas?
I'll just say that I'll mention again the DOE grant that is the purpose of which is to replicate or adapt the Kresge model and other financing models that would involve foundations and lenders and project developers, so that resilient power could be scaled beyond this existing Kresge model. So that is a major focus in the next several years, is to speak with identify new opportunities for participation by foundations and 501c3 lenders and other conventional lenders to impact investors, to try to mobilize more resources towards this. We think that this particular program could be expanded, but I think we have to demonstrate demand. We have to show that the money can be put to work, and we couldn't ask for a better partner than NYCEEC to work to prove out the model.
This is Jessica. Thanks for that. I agree entirely. We would love to be in a situation where there's demand from partners working all over the country to expand the reach of solar and storage in low-income communities. And we are all ears. We'd love to talk to folks, but we're thinking of this work with NYCEEC and Clean Energy Group as something of a pilot, and we hope it is wildly successful, and we use the full loan guarantee quickly and see opportunities to expand.
Great. So a question came in about the technical assistance grants, if they're intended for projects that are likely to seek a loan through NYCEEC, or is it possible to get the technical assistance for projects that may not be, particularly outside of that area? So I'll address this for this loan guarantee program, for this financing program. The technical assistance grants would have to be to projects that potentially could be financed through NYCEEC. But that Clean Energy Group, through our Resilient Power Project, we do have the capacity to provide some technical assistance grants to projects that fall outside of that area, even if they are not likely to work for this program. As long as there is potential for funding to get a project done, we'd be open to talking to folks, and so please reach out about that. So there's a technical question that came in, and this one I'll address as well. So there was a question about solar storage in multifamily properties, providing resilience. Is it just for common area spaces or on tenant meters as well? So generally, projects that we've seen and we've worked with and have seen across the country, it has been for common area spaces, has been the general go-to for multifamily housing properties to provide that common area resilient space. But there are a couple of examples. One in particular is a new project development in Utah called Solar Lofts that we're actually going to be doing a webinar on February 12th. So that's actually a case where the battery storage is on individual tenant meters, and there's 600 units there. So that is an opportunity as well. But that's kind of a new scenario that hasn't really been explored before. So actually, it does seem like we're pretty much at the end of our time here. We didn't get a chance to get to a lot of the questions, so I apologize for that, and encourage anyone to please follow up with our presenters today, or reach out directly to Clean Energy Group, and we can make sure that your question gets to the right person. Contact information for Rob there. Please reach out to Rob or myself, and we'll make sure that we get the right person to your question. So with that, I want to thank our presenters today. This has been a really, really great webinar. A lot of great information here. Thanks to everyone that attended, and I'm going to hand things back over to Sam to let you know about some upcoming webinars that we have scheduled coming up.
Thanks, Seth. So as Seth mentioned, we do have several upcoming webinars in January and February of this year related to low income, clean energy, and also energy storage. You can see those listed on your screen. You can register for those webinars at cleanegroup.org/webinars. They're all free. They're all open to the public, and we hope to see you there. Thanks, everybody. Bye.